Time for another 10 Talk. I'm on my way to work this morning. Got a little later start. Today, one of my later days. I have a couple days where I start real early, start at 5:30 in the morning, so I leave at around 5 or a little before 5. And when I do that, man, it has been cold lately. And you know, I think I've noticed the older I get, the less I like the cold. I like warm weather where it's t-shirt and shorts kind of weather is what I like, you know, and if it gets too warm, I can just jump in the river or a lake or the pool or something like that to cool off. But it's been cold. And that's kind of the subject of today's 10 Talk, which a bit of a controversial one, you know, who knows? I mean, this might get banned and censored from YouTube like a lot of other things, but kind of wanted to dive into the whole subject of climate change. Now, I know there's way more to talk about than I can do in 10 minutes or whatever, so I'm just going to kind of go with some of the things, but I know I've been into checking out weather for decades. A lot of my life I've been kind of interested in weather kind of things and have watched weather and, you know, a little bit of a weather nerd, I guess. But, you know, just checking out different areas and weather and at one time, you know, trying to determine where we might want to live if we moved. But climate change, aka man-made global warming. So I kind of wanted to look into this a little bit, and one of the big things that's brought up, you know, is the Arctic. And so I've been watching the Weather Channel on the Arctic, and you know, I know me here in Sacramento, it gets down like in the 30s and stuff, and that's cold to me. People living in other areas of the world or other states even are like, you think that's cold, dude? Man, you don't know what cold is. And so, you know, looking at the whole Arctic thing, I've been looking at that lately, and I've seen it gets down to like minus 45 degrees below zero. And the warm for the day, the high for the day is like 33 below. So, I mean, that's like, I can't even imagine that kind of cold. But, you know, I started thinking about it. You know, I know this, you know, intellectually I know this, but started thinking about it, you know, freezing is 32 degrees above zero. So that 45 degrees below zero is actually tight things going on here driving to work today, is actually 77 degrees below freezing. 77 degrees below what it takes to freeze something. Man, that is cold. And the high for the day, 33 below zero, would be 65 degrees below freezing, what it takes to freeze something. That's just insane to me, just unbelievable. And, you know, recently I've seen it's like 32 to 35 below for the zero for the low, and 21 to 25 below for the high for the day. Now, that's absolutely freezing. You know, nothing is melting at that. Nothing is melting at those temperatures. And you don't hear a lot about global warming or climate change during these times of the year when it's like so cold. Usually it's, you know, in the summer high temperatures when you hear about that. But anyway, as I've mentioned before, one of the things I try to do, try to look at things scientifically, politically, and then as a foundation spiritually, because that's the most important thing. You know, what is God saying? And the thing I know is that if we believe in God and we believe in the Bible, God is in control of the climate and the weather, not man. Man, we always try to elevate ourselves and try to believe we have more control and more power than we actually do. But God, He's ultimately in control and power. And, you know, one of the things I think about is like in the 70s and 80s when I was in high school and just afterwards, the big thing was that we were in global cooling. We were going into another ice age. And everybody was going to die because it was going to get too cold and everything was going to ice over. Looking into that a little bit, I came across an article that this is not a recent phenomenon, but that this has been going on for, I can't remember exactly, like 100 years. Scientists are, quote, scientists have been saying, vacillating between global cooling, another ice age, and global warming, and always brought fear to people. So looking again from a spiritual perspective, God's in control of things. And one of the things that I know is that God also tells us that there really is a devil. There really is evil out there that hates us and wants to destroy us. And God also tells us that a house divided against itself can't stand. A nation, a people, a society divided, it's going to fall. And there would, you know, Satan would love nothing more than to try to attack God's people in some way. And you see that with this, that there is just hate and division being instilled in people, so that if you're not going along with the narrative, the global warming, quote, climate change, you know, they changed the terminology, make it sound like something different. And climate change, man, that encompasses everything, anything and everything. If it's getting colder, warmer, whatever. So we got to be careful of that. We got to look to God and look at things from God's perspective, and we got to find ways to unify, not divide against ourselves, or we're going to be destroyed. We're going to be taken over. And like one of the other things that God tells us is that there's going to be an antichrist, this one world leader in this new world order, where this one world government. And with all the freedoms in the United States and the freedom to worship God for who He is and the way He calls us to, stands in the way of that. So the United States can't stand as a free nation like this and a free people to worship God if that is to take place. We know that's going to take place because God tells us it's going to take place. So I just see, you know, global warming, COVID, race, sexuality, all this kind of stuff, just so many ways that there is going on that is dividing people these days. So we got to turn to God, man. We've got to turn to God, look to Him, and know Him and His ways, where we can be unified and we can worship Him freely and truly, in truth. So anyway, you know, just looking at, you know, in science is data and evidence, and you look at the data and the evidence of the temperatures out there, and it's like nothing's melting. Nothing is melting at 77 degrees below freezing for a low, and 45 degrees below freezing at, wait a minute, 65 degrees below freezing is a high temperature. So Satan is all about fear. God removes fear out of our lives because we know He's in control and that we can trust Him. He loves us, we can trust Him, and He's just calling us to give our whole lives to Him because He's trustworthy and He is in control and has created everything. Praise God for that. All glory and praise to our God for who He is and what He does.